The process of making strawberry jam begins with ripe berries gently simmered with sugar in a copper saucepan, after which the mixture is slowly stirred until thick, and then the hot jam is poured into a glass jar to gradually cool. Meanwhile, Margaret smiles happily when someone nearby remarks on the pleasant aroma and asks if the treat is ready yet. In the softly lit room, she stands holding a carefully wrapped gift, as if the very atmosphere is suffused with warmth. Afterwards, the girl, with a strained smile, admits her bad luck. Today was supposed to be her long-awaited day off, when she was planning to make strawberry jam and simply relax. She recalls how she dreamed of spending the day at home, sleeping in, cleaning, and finally going to a beauty salon. Then the apologetic voice of a woman asking for help is heard, and in response, the tired heroine irritably demands that her rightful rest be returned to her, vowing never again to trust the guide who ruined her plans. After a brief argument, she collapses exhausted into a chair, silently screaming into her pillow from exhaustion, but soon decides to simply sigh and let it go. Since tomorrow is another day off, and the day is drawing to a close, it's time to finally wrap things up and allow herself some rest. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man sitting behind the wheel rests his head on the steering wheel, completely exhausted, while a woman watches him silently from outside. Nearby, someone wide-eyed tries to process what just happened. Later, one of the witnesses quietly sighs and says that the day clearly didn't go well, especially for the poor strawberries that never made it into jam, adding that it's a shame they would have made wonderful preserves. Meanwhile, Sae lies in bed, staring at the ceiling with wide eyes. Her arm is bandaged, and a soft glow fills the room, creating a sense of peace and quiet, as if the world around her has frozen in anticipation. Gradually coming to her senses, Sae blinks and wonders if she's in heaven. But at that very moment, a playful dog jumps on her, joyfully licking her face, and she, with a cry of surprise, asks him to stop. Before she can catch her breath, tiny lights, little fairies, flare above her head. They circle excitedly, greeting her, and Sae stares at them in amazement, unable to believe she's actually seeing them with her own eyes. One of the fairies lands on her finger, delighted by the human warmth. At that moment, a light knock is heard outside the door, and the woman in the room goes to open it to greet the unexpected guests. Luke appears at the threshold, looking in surprise at the elderly lady and two men in white lab coats. The old woman calmly explains that he is facing a spirit summoner, and all three enter. Later, Sae wakes up completely and sees Adelaide Dustin standing before her, greeting her and asking her name. Two men stand behind Adelaide, and the dog watches intently. As the girl breathes heavily, she suddenly realizes something important and asks why all this is happening. The older woman looks at her with a knowing expression, as if she already knows she's the one who's figured out the truth. Then the shocked heroine explains that she died in the accident and now finds herself in another world, unable to understand how this is possible. The two men listen attentively, and the voiceover recalls how the fall on Adelaide's mansion nearly cost her her life. Daniel Reynolds then advises her not to move too quickly, despite the wounds having been magically healed. Off to the side, the woman ponders how her faithful dog, Buddy, managed to find her in the first place. The story then moves to a small rural clinic called Misley, where the doctor introduces his student, Mark Disraeli. The girl is told that she was summoned to this world by spirits, who named her the Summoner. The narrative clarifies that on this continent, spirit summoners are considered almost taboo, and much information about them is classified, although ancient records have survived. One of those present explains that such people have two characteristics, a lack of magic and the ability to see spirits and fairies. Later, Sae shows the girl a book from the Royal Library and explains about the mysterious spirit eggs and golden lights appearing throughout the country. The listener is amazed and holds the volume carefully, trying to remember every word. Finally, the bespectacled man tests the girl's abilities by asking her to write something on a piece of paper. She obediently writes a few words and is surprised to realize that she can fluently read and write in an unfamiliar language. She is relieved to realize that she is able to communicate through writing, while the man in glasses confirms that there is no problem with her writing. The girl asks Mark to remove the bandages, and when he agrees, she notices his long eyelashes and pleasant features, mentally deciding that he must be popular with the girls. After the procedure, she thanks him for his concern. A man in glasses asks the woman's name, then examines a sheet of illegible writing and admits he can't read one of the names. While the other man remains silent, a voice calls out to Mark from the next room. She notes that the other person's response sounds unexpectedly polite, while someone nearby notices that he looks reserved and cool, but still attractive. Elma reassures Issei, saying she didn't notice anything strange in her voice. Issei muses that it's impossible to trust strangers right away. Then the man explains that spirit summoners often lose their memories, but in her case, it was most likely her voice that was affected. A young woman gently asks an elderly lady to give her a name in this world. Touched by the request, the older lady hesitates, but then quietly begins to say, "My." Issei carefully takes someone's hand, and at that moment, an elderly woman notices the poppy pearl earrings. The two women sitting on the bed confirm that the jewelry does indeed belong to their mother, exchanging warm glances. An elderly woman suggests the name Margaret, and the girl admiringly praises her mother's earrings. Her mother explains that she got them from her grandmother and that when her daughter grows up, she'll definitely give them to her. Hearing this, the girl smiles happily. The girl sadly recalls losing her parents in an accident, quietly whispering her mother's name, Margaret. Those nearby agree it's a beautiful and kind name. She smiles warmly, thinking about the one important thing those around her don't know. From the moment she arrived, she decided it would be impolite not to enjoy the joys of this world. Issei stands in a sun-drenched kitchen surrounded by flowers, preparing strawberry jam at the edge of a picturesque forest, and the whole scene seems to invite one to start a new day with peace and warmth. Issei happily picks berries in Miss Adelaide's field, admiring the abundance of the harvest and enjoying the sweet taste of strawberries, which she thinks are the best in the world. Elma cheerfully says they can finally make some jam now. Mira, holding a basket of berries, smiles, and Issei, standing by the door next to the dog, checks to see if these are the right strawberries. Issei recalls living in Miss Adelaide's house for 2 months, watching one of the women playfully shake a tiny creature. Then she recalls Dr. Daniel's explanation of the important role of spirits and summoners in this world. A calm figure prays amidst falling petals, saying that caring for spirits brings good fortune, while angry spirits bring misfortune. Therefore, summoners are obligated to treat them wisely and carefully. Issei feels uneasy recalling her past as a merchant, but the man reassures her that there's no need to worry. He says that in this land, spirits and summoners live in harmony, and the other promises to pass on her story to Sanamiya. Elma reflects on how the kingdom reveres summoners, allowing them to live in palaces or temples. The older woman kindly offers Issei to stay with her until she fully recovers. The girl admits she doesn't want to live in the capital and would prefer to stay here. The elderly woman replies that Miss Adelaide reminds her of her own grandmother, as they both exude the same, almost magical, calm. The man says that Miss Adelaide lives alone, since her son, who is settled in the capital, rarely gets in touch, and she resolutely rejected the offer to hire a maid. Issei sincerely asks to be hired as a maid to repay the kindness shown. The woman listens attentively, amazed and touched by her determination. Issei confesses her feelings to Adelaide, asking for permission to stay by her side. The older woman looks surprised and a little confused, unsure how to respond to her sincere request. After a moment, she softly says that she will not take her as a servant, but offers to stay with her as an equal, as a companion, and not as a subordinate. The woman adds that she can come and go as she pleases, although living here is quite unusual. Then Sei suggests that, if Adelaide doesn't mind, she stay for the rest of her days, and the elderly woman agrees with a warm smile. Later, Issei reflects in silence, admitting to herself that she sometimes remembers the old world, but increasingly wants to look only forward. She's plagued by guilt for no longer wanting to return. The story then shifts to a warm forest, immersed in flowers. Someone admires the softness and beauty of this place, deciding to simply enjoy the moment. Soon, a bowl of fresh berries appears, and a voice suggests making strawberry jam immediately, to preserve the taste of the real thing. It's explained that jam was originally a food preservation method, and sugar played a crucial role. A close-up of a package appears, with the proportions marked half the weight of the berries, and Issei carefully weighs the strawberries, preparing to cook them. Afterwards, she places the covered pan in the oven to keep it warm overnight, and remembers how Miss Adelaide always made jam only from fresh fruit picked right behind the house. Elma argues that agriculture is still unpopular here, reminiscent of Japan in the 1930s, but still admits that life in the outback is actually much more difficult than it seems. Sei sits on the grass and says she's used to living like this, having once lived with her grandmother and isn't at all opposed to simplicity. Meanwhile, Elma and another woman are eating inside, and Sei cheerfully asks if the dish is ready. The girl admires ripe berries soaked in the perfect amount of water and explains that the fire wand is a magical tool of their world. When she touches it to the stove, a strange blue flame erupts. They begin making the jam, stirring gently and making sure the pan doesn't overflow. Occasionally, white bubbles appear, and Sei points out that the mixture needs to simmer to prevent overflowing. Sei continues to thoroughly stir the jam, skimming off the foam to prevent it from burning, watching intently as the mixture becomes thicker and thicker. She explains that when the foam becomes shiny and the bubbles become larger, the jam is ready. Then she turns off the stove, checks the consistency, pours the jam into a sterilized jar, seals it tightly, and turns it upside down to cool. The finished strawberry jam sparkles in the light, perfectly ripe and fragrant. Some explain that it can be stored at room temperature for up to 3 months, and even longer if kept out of air. Two women are sitting on a sofa and discussing the fact that they don't have enough helpers, while the man explains that Mark is currently babysitting, as a mother with a baby recently came to visit them. Luke, tired of 2 babies crying at once, admits that he is of little use, and the girl insists that they need to hire a nanny to cope with the situation. The woman asks if there's anything like a daycare here, then clarifies, just a teacher looking after children. The man replies that he has a teaching license and that in their world, teachers often act as nannies. An older man wearing glasses approaches a young woman named Margaret, asking if she would be willing to help with childcare and assist mothers and the elderly. The older woman mentions that rumors of the spirit summoner have spread throughout the village and invites the girl to introduce herself. The man agrees, saying it won't be scary if she handles it. Sei happily accepts the offer, and the woman adds that everything will be smooth sailing, since it will take place at Daniel's clinic. Finally, the older man suggests waiting until her legs are completely healed before teaching her how to dance. Meanwhile, the woman turns away, pouring tea, and the girl suddenly remembers something important. Sei is surprised when Luke tells her about the secret place in the forest, adding that Mark received permission to use it from Audie. The man calls the girl a helpless child, lightly patting her on the head. She is embarrassed and doesn't understand why Mark told Daniel everything, since now he treats her like a daughter, although she expected teasing. Daniel receives a basket of bread as a bribe from 2 women at the door. They thank him and promise to return, while one gestures for silence. Daniel sighs heavily, thinking how terrible this is. An elderly man finds a girl lying on the ground and notices that she appeared out of nowhere. A woman nearby insists that she will take care of her herself, as she sensed the kindness in her eyes and trusts her. The man assures her that the royal court would have accepted her without hesitation and chides the woman for being rude to someone who wants to stay. The woman appears internally torn, while the girl silently hopes to be allowed to stay. He says she looks like the girl's real mother, even though only a few weeks have passed. The woman smiles, thinking that their meeting was no coincidence. The older woman reassures Daniel, telling him not to worry, as the girl seems happy with her. A quiet but warm rapport develops between them. Margaret receives a simple but sturdy dress from an elderly lady. She asks her to try it on as thanks for her help, and she happily notices how comfortable it is to move in. Sei joyfully exclaims that the result is perfect, and the girl with the necklace around her neck approves, although she doubts whether the outfit really matches her owner's tastes. The woman explains that Miss Adelaide's tastes are very different from those of the villagers. The locals prefer clothes that flatter their figures, while Adelaide herself wears something completely different, not even resembling the attire of her son's ex-wife. It later emerges that she once lived at the imperial court and detested the forced attire. Sei reflects on how, at almost 30, she still combines old clothes. Elma recalls how carefully she treated her clothes in her youth, considering it a sign of noble upbringing. The heroine thinks she'll soon have to go to the imperial palace, as the journey there is long. She also wants to ask Miss Adelaide to help her choose suitable outfits and go shopping together. The story describes a town square where vegetables, groceries, sewing supplies are sold, and where a pastry shop and bakery are also in operation. Elma reflects on the traditional, almost Amish way of life and the royal candy store, finding it curious. Meanwhile, the older woman advises Margaret to contact Daniel if he feels ill and not to overexert herself. The girl was touched by the thoughtfulness shown, remembering how worried Miss Adelaide had been when she tried to do everything herself. No one had ever asked her to take care of herself before, and this simple act of concern made her happy, even if it almost made her overdo it. A woman with a soft expression says Margaret's name, and Margaret, squeezing someone's hand, quietly replies that she is glad to be here. Sei carefully holds the hand of the elderly woman, who thanks her warmly, noting how much light and tenderness there is around, as if the whole world is filled with goodness. The young man recounts how he was born into a wealthy family, but felt empty from childhood. His success and good looks provoked the envy and resentment of his half-brothers and his father's legal wife, leading to years of humiliation. Luke, wounded and clutching his side, asks if it's too bad a time to play hide-and-seek. Then he remembers the assassination attempt with horror and is afraid to return, knowing that dangerous people were behind it. The man with the mustache insists on helping the injured young man, despite his objections. He calmly administers first aid and offers to accompany him to safety. Luke lies in bed, in intense pain and irritation. He thinks about how much he hates this time of year, especially the rain, which brings back the old wound. A young man, lying in bed, anxiously ponders his persistent pain. A serious-looking man next to him asks him to rest for now, explaining that the wound is bandaged but not yet healed, and they can continue the conversation later. The young man hesitantly turns to the older man, who smiles softly and says that he has been retired for a long time, but his name is still Dr. Daniel, a renowned healer at the palace. Mark is asked about the future, reminded that he is considered gifted, and asked whether he plans to take revenge, run away, or become the heir to another family. He reflects that to avoid dying, one must continue to live and act. Then he hands over a cup of tea, acknowledging that everything takes time. The man in glasses suggests staying here for now so he can sort things out, and then they'll split the treatment costs. They both calmly hold their cups, enjoying the silence. Outside a modest building, a man confirms he has an assistant. An elderly woman remarks that village life is meager compared to the capital, and another explains that the assistant is his apprentice, brought from there. The woman asks why Dr. Daniel is building a clinic here. The elderly man replies that, with his talent, it's a waste of money, as he could earn much more in the capital. The man looks at his watch and suggests going on a visit, and the other, wearing glasses, responds with a slight smile. The scene then shifts to a large, elegant house under a partially clouded sky. The woman greets Daniel warmly, asking if the young man he brought is his new assistant. The second man explains that it is Mark Disraeli and adds that everything is already prepared. The young man notices that the house seems frozen in time, and there are no servants here. Inside, two people calmly clarify that this is no ordinary visit. Mark remains silent as the older man and woman discuss how she is the reason for their presence. The man admits he cares for her, and Mark quietly steps forward, admitting he couldn't help her. A man with glasses and a mustache admonishes a young man in a suit, saying that neither money nor status will bring back lost time, and urges him not to miss opportunities when they arise. The elder advises Mark to follow his own feelings, despite the uncertainty of the future, and Mark reflects on how he wants to protect what is dear to him, while remaining just a human being. The older man tells the younger man that if he doesn't consider himself a human being, his brothers will do the same to him. The younger man pauses, remembering how he spent 4 months in the village of Misley after this conversation. He recalls his trip to the capital, finishing school and entering medical school under the mentorship of Dr. Daniel, whose support stopped the attacks and resolved the question of succession. After a brief hesitation, the man in glasses clarifies that he did not specifically call him, but, noticing the young man's sincere interest, offers to take him on as an apprentice. A young man with a slight smile promises to help until the very end, and an older man in glasses grumbles that one rude acquaintance never changes, adding with a grin that he himself is not an old man at all. The young man arrives at a large house, bows to the man standing inside, then goes out into the yard, where he notices a woman in a rocking chair with a dog at her feet. He asks if it's unfair when she talks about losing her voice and how strangely she came to this world. He calmly replies that no one is to blame, and she listens with a gentle smile. Sei tells him it's no one's fault and there's no hard feelings, adding that he values people too highly. Then she smiles warmly, clarifying that it's all for her sake, and he quietly admits he understands. The man notices the girl smiling softly at him and gently strokes her head, which makes her surprised and slightly embarrassed. The young man gently strokes her hair again, causing the girl to blush and exclaim in surprise. Unable to contain herself, she hugs him, leaving him in mute amazement. He sighs softly, reminding her that the wound hasn't completely healed yet, as she sits on the grass, wincing as she tries to put on her shoes. Mark returns home with a basket in hand, where he is met by a man in glasses who asks him to listen. Mark mentions that Margaret was dancing in the strawberry field, although she has not yet fully recovered. A bespectacled man reflects on Margaret's calm nature, while a young man next to him smiles warmly, thinking she's still a child. He then imagines a future where this soft feeling between them remains, and wonders what the world looks like through her mismatched eyes. Sei wakes to the sound of birds singing, and in the kitchen, an elderly woman notices her arrival while the younger woman is preparing breakfast. The older woman embraces Sei, greeting her with kindness and joy. The three fairies joyfully greet their furry companion with a good morning, while nearby a girl addresses a dog, calling him sweetheart and asking if he will go with her again. Sei waves cheerfully by the dog, saying goodbye, and inside the house, a woman announces that she will be visiting Daniel's clinic today, offering to take lunch with her while food and tea are prepared on the table. Sei confidently tells the older woman that she has been to the clinic before, but she still asks with a little hesitation if she wants to go with her. Elma, slightly offended, declares that she's already 28 and not a child at all, though she feels like one under the care of Adelaide and Dr. Daniel. The dog suggests breakfast, and Elma gently reminds her not to overdo it. Sei waves goodbye with a smile, while another woman applauds. The clock shows noon, and Sei walks through the village, noting that their house is on the outskirts and the clinic is about 15 minutes walk away. Along the way, Sei greets a villager, who nods politely in return. She reflects on how many in the village haven't met Orizen yet, but as Dr. Daniel said, everyone here is kind. The children happily run to the dog, who greets them calmly. The girl asks if the doctor has invited them, and the boys confirm that they are going to see Dr. Daniel, amazed at how quickly news spreads. Sei hesitantly calls out to her older sister, who responds with a soft smile, hearing barking nearby. The younger girl joyfully leads the way, and Sei agrees to follow her. Sei gently takes the hand of the little girl who complained of pain in her leg and, smiling, calls the others to go out together. Sei remarks on how smart their dog is when he barks cheerfully. Someone pets him gratefully, and then Sei thanks everyone, and the group applauds. Sei opens the door, greeting someone with a good morning, and nods back when a man in glasses asks to hand over the luggage to Mark. Sei is finishing her preparations when Mark arrives. She rushes to speak first, asking why he told the doctor about that incident, and he looks up in surprise. The young man calmly explains that the doctor needed to understand the patient's behavior, and as an assistant, he decided to report it. Then he gently strokes the girl's head, adding that she needs to take this with the responsibility of growing up. The girl angrily calls the boy a fuzzy head, and he stubbornly declares he won't give in because he's older. Then she smiles when someone calls Daniel to the doctor, and he advises her to act her age. Sei, looking tired, quietly greets him, holding a baby in her arms, a little girl standing nearby. The man gestures for them to enter, and the woman confirms the child's name is Riri. Sei excitedly shows off a doll with fancy dresses, asking if she likes it. The girl enthusiastically replies that it's very cute, and someone nearby smiles kindly, holding the toy in their hands. Luke insists they play a little longer, while Sei consoles a girl named Marie, who doesn't want to leave. Richard announces that the examination is complete, asking if she needs to rest after the pill. A woman joyfully greets those entering the room, where two people sit silently and watch. She then cheerfully plays with several children, filling the room with liveliness and good-natured noise. Sei suggests they take a rest on the second floor soon and shows them the way. The two elderly people listen attentively, and a smiling girl walks cheerfully alongside them. In a library full of books, the man asks if anyone is surprised by the number, and the woman inquires if they are all on medicine. Carl reads a book in the library and explains that the man they're talking about is knowledgeable not only in medicine but in many other fields as well. He adds that half of this knowledge belongs to Mark, who has shown an inquisitive mind since childhood. The cheerful girl notices that everything is going as it should, and the man with glasses and a mustache recognizes Mark as a diligent and devoted student. They serve savory pancakes with cheese and poppy seeds, complementing them with a grilled chicken salad, and invite us to the table. The young man in the suit is surprised, and the woman and man calmly sit down next to each other. Margaret smiles warmly, thinking this man resembles her brother. He asks if everything is alright and, having finished his business, decides to walk her home. They leave the building together. The girl strokes the small animal's head, feeling lonely after the children left earlier. She speculates that the people of Misley avoid direct contact with her, perhaps because of her unique origins. She recalls how long it's been since she spent time with her children and notes that it was a pleasure. The doctor tries to lift her spirits and says he's glad to see her in a good mood. Sei reminisces about her job at the department store and her dreams of becoming a teacher, while an irritated colleague yells that the store is going bankrupt and everyone can stop coming. Adelaide returns home, amazed at how fate brought her to another world and connected her with her children. Meanwhile, the child quietly thanks the doctor for his care. Elma, sitting in a chair, admits with surprise that she dozed off a little, and Issei, standing next to her, looks at her thoughtfully, as if something is bothering her. Issei notices the letter and expresses concern, sensing something is wrong, but the older woman reassures her, saying she is simply tired, and offers to cook dinner together. A woman comes to visit Audie and Margaret, greeting them warmly, while another woman wonders doubtfully if Adelaide is overtired as tea is served. Issei ponders the strange letter, noting that it's not from the capital or even from Adelaide's son. She decides to prevent disaster when suddenly a dog barks behind her. The girl holds the letter in her hands in surprise, and the elderly man in glasses says that he can read it. After all, it is addressed specifically to her. Skimming the lines, Sei learns that two envoys will be arriving from the capital, Hugh Townsend from the Magic Academy and Walter Dustin from the Royal Palace. She is stunned by the letter's contents and freezes in amazement. Two women reunite warmly after a long separation. One explains that she lived in the capital with her son and his wife about 10 years ago, but decided to leave because city life didn't suit her. Sei anxiously clarifies the details, and the elderly woman explains that she was found guilty, after which her son soon divorced his wife. Two women discuss how a persistent mother was thrown out of the house, adding that the loss was essentially insignificant to begin with. The older woman says she left on her own, but now she doesn't know how to look some people in the eye. Then the man defends Walter, calling him stubborn but not mean, and the young woman apologizes to Margaret for bothering her over nothing. The man with glasses politely asks if there is any free accommodation in the village, and the woman with long hair replies that he will stay in this house with Hugh. One of those present motions for silence, after which another explains that Hugh is originally from here but no longer owns property in the area. The others listen attentively. Sei suddenly decides to start cleaning, feeling a growing sense of tension and panic. She needs to prepare a bath, prepare food, and welcome guests. The others watch her with concern, wondering if they should help. The bespectacled man reassures Audie that there's nothing to worry about, and she replies that she's already feeling better. At that moment, a bird flapped its wings near the house. A cheerful girl offers to give a warm welcome to the visitors, while two men nearby laugh and wonder what is happening to the other two participants in the scene. Issei offers to bake snow cookies dusted with powdered sugar and thanks Margaret, who receives a gentle pat on the head. From afar, someone reminds them that Adelaide once brought tears. Issei, confused, tries to figure out what she did wrong, while Elma stands calmly nearby. The bespectacled man politely says he'll come back later, and two women behind him mirror her embarrassed gesture. Elma is shown tending the mansion's garden and helping with the children at the clinic, and the narrative notes that the days are getting longer and summer is approaching. Issei joyfully welcomes guests from the capital, feeling that the long-awaited day has finally arrived. She stands outside with a basket of food in her hands and smiles. Issei notices the fairies and Buddy, greets them, and comments on how many spirits there are today. While she's cooking something on the table, Buddy watches, and the fairies cheerfully ask if she'd like to be petted. Issei laughs merrily as the tiny fairies tickle her, playfully warning her not to get under her clothes. The dog watches intently, and cries for help are heard in the distance, followed by the sound of approaching footsteps. A girl excitedly asks Walter if he's seen the fairy eggs, and he answers quietly. Another girl, surprised, looks around, noticing that something has disappeared. Issei is astonished and assumes the guests have arrived from the capital. One of the men politely apologizes to Lady Urizen and asks her to rise. Issei asks if everyone is ready, when the girl looks away in panic. Then Hugh Townsend introduces himself to Lady Urizen with a charming smile, drawing admiration from everyone around. A young man and woman greet the new arrivals, and a graceful girl makes a slight curtsy, remembering how Adelaide praised her for her manners, and says that she is pleased to meet her. A girl, surprised, says she hopes to make friends, while another looks confused. Then a serious man named Walter Dustin is introduced, and the third person in the scene greets him calmly. The girl is struck by the tall and imposing young man, wondering if he is Adelaide's son. He looks down at her with a serious, sullen expression. She smiles warmly, saying she still owes the new arrivals a warm welcome, and he snaps at her not to look at him like that. Then Issei asks for at least a little cooperation, and he only sighs wearily. Issei cheerfully asks what's wrong, holding a cookie in her hand. He answers curtly and coldly, but she smiles softly and asks if he likes sweets. Then they head home, where the woman greets Margaret. The woman greets Walter warmly, introducing herself as Adelaide Dustin and apologizing for her homely appearance. Hugh Townsend of the Magic Academy politely asks for his hospitality. She reacts with surprise and asks why he's acting like this. He calmly notes that a lot of time has passed, then stares at her, making her feel uneasy. The two watching women whisper about the tense atmosphere. The young lady notices Hugh's emerald eyes, admiring their brightness and sparkle, though she notes that the irises appear slightly different from those of ordinary people. She teases him for staring too hard, and he sheepishly admits he's starting to get lost. Then they all discuss their plan to visit the village chief after stowing their luggage, exchanging light-hearted banter. They arrive at an old but well-kept house. One of the guests remarks on how cozy it is and looks around with interest. The man recalls the last time he was here was as a child 8 years ago, for just half a day. The woman asks when he visited Walter and reminds him of his upcoming visit to the village headman, which creates a slight tension between them. In the kitchen, two women are discussing the children who ran out into the yard, and one jokingly compares someone to Walter, saying that he is too serious and may have scared the other. He really did look stern, which made the girl hesitate for a moment, but she immediately decided that there was nothing threatening about him, and she felt calm. The man is surprised when the woman explains that the warm atmosphere in the house is thanks to Margaret. The other woman adds that the doctor and Mark are coming for dinner that evening, sounding slightly nervous. Issei sets out a long table and chairs, noting that she hasn't had guests in a while. A woman nearby explains that she sometimes invites Daniel and Mark to dinner. Issei greets the two early diners warmly and compliments them on the food, while Mark offers wine, joking about its lightness. She laughs in protest when he pats her head. An elderly woman and a young man admire the delicious dishes on the table, and the girl apologizes for the intrusion, announcing her return to the group and the serious man. Elma animatedly asks what each person prefers, roasted meat or vegetables, after which the conversation smoothly moves to discussing future plans over cups of tea. The young woman insistently asks to tell him more, but Daniel refuses, while someone's gloved hand places a magical instrument and a special feather on the table. The girl happily demonstrates her magical writing with a quill, introducing herself as Margaret and asking not to be called lady. She then remarks with a smile that this way, she can save paper by communicating in writing. Elma says they need to sort out the voice issue, and Issei suggests meeting with the spirits. Elma asks that anyone report any complications, as the item is still just a prototype. Elma is surprised by the offer to meet the spirits, but promises to arrange everything. The narrative explains that spirits appear in the royal forest, although their behavior remains erratic and difficult to predict. The woman with the staff offers the opportunity to meet, and the man asks if she would like to see the spirits right now. The other two react with surprise and curiosity, exchanging glances. The narrator reflects that he wants to meet some people, but does not know how many days they will have to stay in the capital to accomplish everything. The character feels comfortable around Adelaide, but doesn't want to leave the forest. Adelaide then admits that she doesn't want her to leave, and receives a surprised but joyful response. A woman named Margaret tells someone that she is 26 years old in this world, looking serious and a little worried. Margaret repeats that the heroine here is 26, and the other man clarifies why she said that she was 28, and gently strokes her head. A young man with blonde hair smiles cheerfully, and someone nearby is perplexed by what he is happy about and indignantly says that he is not even older. Elma smiles warmly, suggesting they finally get down to business. Sae reacts with curiosity and a light laugh, and then Elma calls out to Margaret, distracting her. The mischievous character suddenly asks if he can examine the woman's eyes right now, and then suddenly attacks, causing her to scream in confusion. Richard, holding Sae close, demands to know what she is doing, while Sae looks up at him with a determined and serious expression. In a tense atmosphere, Carl stands holding his hat while the three sit at the table. Then Sae tries to diffuse the tension, asking everyone to calm down. Richard accuses the girl of not asking permission before entering a trance, claiming that such a thing cannot be ignored. She nervously defends herself, saying she was simply getting close, and Carl looks puzzled. The man with the mustache asks Hugh to explain what is happening. The woman persuades Mark to let her go, and then Hugh carefully asks her if she feels anything strange and if everything is okay with her. Richard reassures Sae that he's fine, though she's worried and confused. She's struck by how different his large, rough hands are from Hugh's. The girl explains that most people can only sense magic, and the man adds that tracking magic is like searching for something invisible. The woman confidently says everything is fine. The woman explains that her eyes are special and allow her to see streams of magic, revealing that the source of the powerful energy from the forest is the lady standing before them. Elma explains that although the lady does not have ordinary strength and her magic is different from the forest one, she clearly feels that an even stronger energy is hidden in her eyes. The girl notices something is wrong with her eyes, and the man suggests that her power may be of a different kind, perhaps akin to the forest sage's magic. The woman doubts that the spirit summoner possesses magical energy at all. Elma speaks thoughtfully about the girl's severe wounds and incredibly rapid regeneration, admitting she has no experience with spiritual resonance magic. Sae agrees that it's likely due to Margaret being a spirit summoner. Elma claims that the magic that heals wounds comes from the forest itself, believing that spirits send their power here. She then recalls warning that leaving these places will prevent full recovery. Richard insists that appearances shouldn't be judged, and Luke doubts he can discern her true nature with just a glance. Carl admits he's skilled at tracking magic, but emphasizes that Hugh possesses the rare ability to see the energy emanating from the forest. A girl hesitantly asks a serious man if trance magic is dangerous, and the older man replies no, although it feels like someone is touching her soul. He gently strokes her head to reassure her. She calmly says that if he's worried, Walter can handle it for him. The man explains that he intends to keep the flow at the surface and promises not to delve deeper. The doctor assures everyone the procedure is safe, and Sae agrees. Richard acknowledges Mark's concerns, and the man invites her to sit comfortably. She asks him to take her hands and look into her eyes, after which they both concentrate, and he says that now they begin. She feels a slight warmth, reminiscent of cold tea. The man places a glove on her hand and calmly informs her that it's over, which surprises her. Suddenly, Hugh loses his balance and falls, alarming the others. One man urges him to get up, and a woman says he must have fallen under his own spell, noticing that he's drenched in sweat. Sae is thrilled to realize she's synchronized with someone and feels the same power emanating from the forest. The other person listens to her, breathing heavily and wiping sweat from their brow. Sae learns that her eyes are connected to the eyes of the spirits in King's Landing. Another woman explains that the magical currents between the capital and the forest are intertwined, though Sae insists she hasn't noticed anything unusual. One of the characters says he's still adjusting to what's happening, and two girls discuss the theory that Margaret uses the magic hidden behind her eyes as a channel for spiritual power. One of them nods, acknowledging the implications. She says she'll check it out again when she gets back, admitting it wasn't as exciting as she expected. Then she thanks her interlocutor, who replies that she saw something truly beautiful in her. The girl tries the cookie, but immediately begins coughing and spitting it out, feeling punished by its taste. The man, confused, asks if she liked it, suspecting she meant something else entirely. The young man feels relief, realizing he's not alone in his suffering. The woman next to him sheepishly agrees, and he says she'll stay at the clinic that night. After that, the group prepares to disperse. The elderly woman notes that they both look tired, and the man adds that the day was still fun. 3 more people stand on the steps, and someone lowers a lantern, suggesting that they finally rest. Issei stands by the window, remembering how she used to think she was ordinary because she lacked magic, and now she doubts whether that is true, looking thoughtfully into the distance. Issei notices the kettle is boiling and calls Carl over. He replies he's just getting a glass of water, and she offers him some chamomile tea, which he agrees to. As she hands him the book, she notices the worry in his gaze. Carl discusses the unpredictability of tragedies and advises him not to distance himself, while Issei admits that she's learned a lot and now feels different, unlike an ordinary person. She apologizes softly and says that his mother clearly loves him and doesn't want him to leave. He clarifies that her words aren't entirely true and asks her to stay with Miss Adelaide a little longer. Sei looks out the window, pondering, as he adds that his mother is happy with her presence, though he himself is still unsure. He asks her to stay close if she has the opportunity, and she replies that he shouldn't pay attention to her, advising him to stay close to his mother for now until she figures it out herself. He assures her there's no need to worry about misunderstandings, admitting he's never been a good son but would gladly accept her as his own. These words bring relief and a quiet smile to Issei. Issei notes that he himself understands he wasn't the best son, but is still surprised that he admits it openly. He thanks her for trying to mend their strained relationship, despite the long-standing rift with his parents. Sei asks if he's his only son, and he admits with a sad smile that he and his mother have always struggled to bond, blaming himself for the coldness that has developed between them. The girl quietly ponders how to approach her. The man, smiling slightly, asks if there's anything stuck to his face. Issei looks at him uncertainly, knowing it isn't, but feeling a sense of inner turmoil. She looks at him with a soft gaze, thinking she'd like to see him smile more often. He stands silently opposite her, listening to her sincere words and not looking away. She recalls how difficult it was to live in the capital, and that 10 years have passed since her separation from her mother. He admits that it was his fault they grew apart, and confesses to having lost track of time. Someone shows a sealed letter, explaining that it arrived yesterday and is signed by Reynolds. A dark-haired man confirms that a spirit has appeared in the forest of the royal capital, while another asks if the summoner is truly real, while expressing trust in Reynolds' honesty. The narrative explains that spirits are extremely rare on this continent. There have been no records of them for the past 200 years. However, a year ago, a spirit was spotted in the capital's forest, summoning its guide, so special caution was now required. A man in formal attire listens to an elder at a desk, who informs him that the Reynoldses will arrive at the palace later, and if the summoner is unable to move, a representative will need to be sent to her. A month later, Margaret expressed her desire to remain with the former Countess of Dustin, and someone approved of this decision, given her fragile state of health. A serious man asks if she really wants to stay with his mother. The doctor insists that a trip to the capital is still too dangerous, even though her condition has improved. 2 women holding flowers recall the changes that have occurred over the past few months. The woman says the first researcher showed concern for the summoner despite her unstable condition, and the man notes that his wife was not the best and reports to the House of Mages, inquiring about the spirit. The woman asks Walter for a minute, despite his busy schedule, but he replies that he has an appointment. Soon, another man calls him into the hallway, offering to talk. A man in glasses politely asks someone to come over to discuss the investigators. Another watches silently as he disappears through the archway, and after a brief glance, they exchange a restrained farewell. Richard reports that they're almost there. Issei perks up, wondering what this man will be like, and says she looks forward to meeting him. The group discusses their plan of action. One suggests visiting the village headman first, while the other insists on quietly heading straight to the Count's mansion. The girl anxiously asks if they'll see the summoner. The girl anxiously turns to Walter, asking if he's seen the fairy egg. Meanwhile, the calm man politely addresses the lady summoner, asking if she can rise. Issei greets Richard cheerfully, who asks with a touch of awkwardness if they're standing too close. She laughingly touches his arm and asks if he likes cookies, and a woman nearby jokes that he's being too clingy. The older woman greets the new arrivals warmly, including Walter, and the man notes that she appears more frail and speaks more quietly than before. The younger woman greets her kindly as the others enter the room. A woman mentions seeing something pleasant recently, and the man remarks that her bright red face betrays her true feelings. He then points to a rare sight nearby and confirms that such a thing is rare. Issei excitedly shows the magical egg to the fairy and the animal, and the man speculates that Hugh must have gone into the forest near King's Landing. The woman explains that so far, only the head of the academy and a few initiates have seen the spirits, as they are shy creatures. The woman wonders if she can see anything by looking at the eyes, and the man asks if she noticed anything suspicious. She replies that she just wants to check something by looking at the distant landscape. She smiles, saying she wants to know the truth, even if it's risky. The man gently remarks that he won't force her, as he's always gallant with women. Then the other asks him not to pressure her. The girl shows interest in what will happen next, lightly teasing Jodhan. He responds with a calm greeting, and the scene smoothly transitions to a quiet night after a busy day. The man reflects on his parents' arranged marriage, recalling how his mother was engaged to another man and nearly sacrificed herself to save the family. He also recalls how different their home was from the estate in King's Landing. The story tells that the couple maintained their relationship until the birth of their heir, after which the father abandoned his wife, who had adapted to life in the capital. The woman recalls how her mother was blamed for the failure of her marriage and how she herself was angry with her, denying the truth about her previous engagement. Now she realizes that she avoided admitting this for many years. The man says he is not worthy of forgiveness, explaining that he kept his distance so as not to cause inconvenience to others, because he simply did not know how to act otherwise. He sips his tea thoughtfully, smelling the familiar aroma, reminiscent of his childhood, when his mother would brew it in the garden. A woman and a child sit at the table nearby, creating a cozy atmosphere. He admits the woman was worried about the strange man calling himself the summoner who had come to her mother's house. She replies that she knew it was best to stay away, but she still felt conflicted. Issei tells the older woman that it's obvious his mother would be sad if he left her, since they get along so well together. The two women exchange soft, warm glances. Richard asks Issei to be kind to the strange woman, admitting that he himself isn't very caring towards his parents. Issei, meanwhile, recalls her own strained relationship with her mother and can't figure out when everything began to fall apart. He awkwardly admits that he doesn't know where to start a conversation or what words to choose, and then says that he has never spent such a calm day with his mother before, smiling sincerely for the first time. At first he's surprised and silent, then she smiles warmly and asks why he can't be like this more often. He pauses for thought, and she adjusts her hair and walks through the doorway with him. Issei calmly holds the lantern by the window, noting that the dog is an excellent watchdog. A look of peace is on her face, and snow falls quietly outside the glass. Issei greets the birds cheerfully while preparing breakfast, wondering if the city-bred boy will cope with village life. He stands nearby, a little embarrassed, in the middle of the bustling morning. Elma greets Margaret in the morning, asking if she had rested well, and is relieved to see that Adelaide had slept well too. Margaret returns the favor by hugging her with a kind smile. Walter admits he woke early to the loud singing of birds. Two women greet him, and one offers to fetch tomatoes and eggs from the garden. The girl declares she won't let him walk alone with Madame Adelaide and offers to accompany him. Walter frowns as he surveys the coop, and the girl apologizes for its small size. He chuckles softly, and she announces with a smile that the tables are now turned, brightening the atmosphere. Issei greets everyone cheerfully, saying it's a great way to start the day. The others explain they followed the young doctor out to gather herbs and promise to stop by later. Issei cheerfully offers fresh tomatoes and asks if they've had breakfast yet, while Richard anxiously wonders if Walter will do anything today. Another woman quietly remarks that the house has been suspiciously quiet since last night. The girl joyfully holds in her hands a fluffy omelette that she learned to cook from Adelaide, marveling at its delicate texture, while on the table nearby stands a frying pan with salt and pepper. Richard asks Margaret if everything is okay. She blushes and quickly assures him that she feels fine, becoming even more embarrassed when he strokes her head and asks if the research spell had affected her. A dog sleeps peacefully on the sofa, and a smiling woman holds a plate and explains that she usually eats breakfast with him. The man confirms that the dog is napping in the living room, while the other two watch in silence. Sae and Richard discuss why Buddy is staying up later than usual today, with Mira jokingly suggesting he's a night owl or simply woke up too early. Then Elma announces that she'll be leaving Margaret in the care of her mistress while she heads off to a women's association meeting. The woman invites the others to stay in the house, and another happily decides to take a piece of pie for Margaret. Meanwhile, the girl excitedly talks about Tanya's new pie, and 3 volunteer to help with cleaning and laundry. A man remembers his son, who is always busy with work and is almost never at home, while the woman next to him tries to maintain a social appearance and not fall out of the social circle. The woman fondly recalls the brief period when she became close to her son while still young, and then decided to retire. However, her mother-in-law strongly opposed this, holding and caressing the boy. She sadly realizes that no matter how much love and words she gave, she received only cold rejection in return. A crowd stands silently behind her, as if sharing her pain. The young man recalls how kind Walter was as a child, noting that Walter never cursed him when he decided to leave. Meanwhile, the older woman says Hugh has grown noticeably since leaving the village, and that time has flown by. Adelaide confirms that she spoke to him last night, after which she and another woman decide to cook more delicious food and greet the guests warmly with a handshake. Sae clenches her fist resolutely, mentally vowing that if persuasion fails, she'll force everyone to try her special cookies. Mira watches her resolve in amazement. The first woman remarks that quarrels and reconciliations are a natural part of life, while the second listens to her with a thoughtful, slightly anxious expression on her face. Elma silently remembers her promise to keep something important as the shot pans to the quiet house outside. She reflects on her favorite dish and another, now forgotten, memory. On the 3rd day of Walter and his companion's stay, they decide to help out at the clinic. Adelaide notices that the surroundings have barely changed, while Walter remains at home with Adelaide, feeling an inner peace. She wonders aloud why Hugh moved to the capital, noting that new faces rarely appear in the village. Someone nearby asks what she means. Sae explains that her magical power has unexpectedly increased along with her height and stamina. The listening girl remains silent, then cautiously asks why she decided to leave for King's Landing. The narrative reveals that her parents are tailors, and a partner in their workshop in the capital invited her to work there. To learn to control magic, she enrolled in the academy, as power is often passed down through noble lines. It further mentions that 3 men, including Walter, may be her distant ancestors. 2 people stand side by side under a cloudy sky, and one of them says that people like them were once used as weapons. These old memories evoke fear in those around them, despite their different origins. Sae jokingly says she'd rather scare others than become a living mop. The girl laughs in response, admitting that seeing magic help wash clothes is truly amusing and unusual. The woman thanks Margaret for their time, and she quietly admits she didn't really want to come to Misery. The other girl blushes in surprise at hearing her name called. The girl reflects on the power of magic to cause harm and destruction, admitting that she herself has caused many problems for others. The young man recalls how everyone gathered at the village headman's house, awaiting their return. The group laughs heartily, remembering that their previous outbursts of anger now seem downright funny. The girl smiles softly, feeling the heaviness lift from her heart. A woman with long hair thanks Margaret for coming to Miss Lai, while another warmly says that without her arrival she would have remained a prisoner of the past and would not have been able to return to the village. Margaret quickly apologizes, assuring them that all is not as it seems. She is invited to join them, and another woman greets her cheerfully, asking her to look after a small boy. Tanya thanks the hostess for yesterday's pie, and she replies that she brought a treat for everyone and offers to sell it in the capital. The profit will be excellent. The girl merely modestly says it's just her hobby. One woman notices the child is hot and asks if he's overheated. Another recalls feeling unwell recently and hearing Margaret nearby. A third woman smiles and tells the boy she's going to the doctor, asking him to wait patiently. Issei touches the child's forehead and feels a fever, and a woman sits nearby. The man approaches and asks what's wrong with the boy, to which Issei replies that he might have a fever, promising to call the doctor. The child joyfully asks to play again, and the woman agrees with a smile. Then the boy asks if they always play so cheerfully, and 2 onlookers approvingly note their good mood. The cheerful woman announces that this is the second time, while 2 men watch from behind. At this point, an excited man runs in, asking if Tanya is okay, and the two girls shout with delight that their prediction has come true. She tells Dan to calm down and take John home first, as she heads straight to Grandma Chris, the local midwife. Chris, slightly confused, asks Tanya if she's his grandmother. She jokingly calls him slow-witted and informs him that John will soon be a big brother. The others congratulate a stunned Dan, and a woman standing nearby fondly thinks she's witnessed a wonderful moment. The girl thanks Margaret for her attentiveness, and the man apologizes for not noticing he was holding John because he had a fever. The woman explains that the boy only has a mild cold. An elderly man admits he imagined the spirit summoner as more divine, but now he sees that she's not much different from his grandchildren. Meanwhile, a woman asks someone outside the house if it's true that the spirit summoner is standing before them. Issei defends the girl, saying she's just ordinary, while another woman sharply rebukes grandfather Tom for his rude words. The older man responds awkwardly, unsure how to defend himself. The old man says it's even better this way, and the boy adds that he doesn't like formalities. The woman feels like a child again, watching the baby's head being stroked. At this point, the girl notices Mark smiling and calling out to him from the doorway, and he asks dubiously if she looks too old. Issei reports that she's completed all her research on the summoner and will be arriving first. Richard asks if Hugh will be returning to the capital today, while the others discuss Margaret's grimoire and Walter's vacation plans. Sei refuses to reveal any details, insisting the other man is hiding something. The man in the suit irritably says it doesn't matter whether Hugh brings it, he should just send it to him. She suggests that he visit the magical arts clinic instead of the usual one, but he calmly replies that he will wait for her there. A group of people gathers at the gate to give someone a warm send-off. A girl blushes, starting to say, "Everyone's here," and the others cheerfully join in, declaring they've gathered to wish someone good luck before their journey. The crowd, smiling, urges Sarah not to be shy, reminding her that they have known each other since childhood, then hands her food for the road and asks her to definitely come back. Issei notices three girls whispering excitedly nearby, and smiles softly when a charming young man attracts the attention of the other two. Inwardly, she calmly thinks that, as far as she knows, everything remains the same. The man reflects on how he's the only member of the opposite sex Mark has ever interacted with alone. He clearly understands the significance of this and admits he can't remain indifferent. Sei feels something warm rise in her chest when his hand touches her hair, but she admits to herself that she doesn't know how to pretend and simply hasn't decided to answer yet. The man asks Margaret if she's lonely, but she gently denies it, saying she's happy because she has everything she needs. The other two anxiously express the opposite opinion. She reflects that she cannot accept kindness or politeness from others until she learns to stand on her own feet, feeling powerless in the face of her own weaknesses. Mark turns away, mentioning back pain, and his companions notice his tears and ask what's wrong. One wishes him luck, and Mark sheepishly admits that, apparently, it's all written on his face. The woman quietly says Margaret's name, and the girl, wiping away tears, feels the man gently hold her head. He asks if she misses Hugh, but receives only a silent, thoughtful look in response. He takes her hand and recalls how his father once stroked his head, and the gesture suddenly brings back memories of the man who died in the accident. She admits that her own father almost never showed such affection. The girl smiles softly and says that she cried so hard then because she thought she would never be able to cry again. After many questions, she falls into deep thought, realizing she's lost everything and been invited here. She realizes she can't say she wants to go home, because going back is now impossible. Sei quietly admits she doesn't want to be the one to send him back, and he says he's disgusted by his own selfishness. Their confessions create a heavy but sincere silence. A man in a suit hugs a woman with a bow in her hair among the shelves of books, reflecting that despite his efforts, he has exhausted his strength, but still did what he could. He confesses to Margaret that he has never looked at women with romantic interest, explaining that he is incapable of falling in love with those who are not close to him, and therefore is indifferent to the attention of village girls. The man gently touches the woman's chin, confessing that he is only interested in one. The scene then shifts to the group, who smile as he explains that Margaret's arrival and the story with the summoner were only the beginning. The elderly woman wonders if Adelaide would allow others to live with her, if they were summoners. The man, meanwhile, reflects that he helps at the clinic not because of his status as a summoner, but because he is Margaret herself. He assures her that if she wants to find her own home, she can create it, and asks her not to worry, because he likes her no less than she likes him. The man notices that Margaret looks thoughtful while she is washing the dishes and quietly approaches her from behind, asking what is bothering her. The woman greets Walter, who asks where Margaret is and whether she made breakfast. She explains that she's bringing a fresh bun to the clinic. He notices her calm smile and says that she, as always, loves to cook. She warmly replies that food tastes best when it's freshly prepared. She admits she loves cooking and gardening, but fears she's unworthy of the title of noblewoman, apologizing for being a bad mother. He gently replies that this is not what he wanted to hear. He earnestly admits that he's been meaning to apologize for a long time and doesn't expect forgiveness. The woman looks up in surprise and quietly says his name. Elma reflects on her stubbornness and unwillingness to admit the truth about his ex-wife, recalling how difficult it was to live in the capital all these years. Carl feels guilty, thinking that he could have acted differently, but Elma assures him that he is not guilty of anything, rejecting his self-accusations. He admits he was the one who made a mistake and regrets not having done more. She recalls that her mother never blamed others and prided herself on taking responsibility. A serious young man asks if his apology will be accepted, and the worried woman promises not to bother him anymore. He asks her to perceive his words as a release, not a simple apology. He calmly says that he inherited a lot from his mother, and she fondly calls him stubborn Walter. He adds that much of him truly comes from her, and she tenderly says that he's a real kind person. Drops of water fall quietly from his hands onto the tabletop. The woman tearfully accepts Walter's apology, forgiving him and expressing softness and sincerity in her gaze. He hugs her tightly, gratefully whispering words of appreciation, then tenderly calls her mother and gently touches her hand, conveying the full depth of his feelings. Sei offers to help and invites him to sit down, saying she wants to hear his voice. He silently decides to keep the muffins as a souvenir he'll never throw away. He remarks that she has always been close to her, and Sei replies that Margaret has never aroused suspicion, adding that Daniel considers them almost like real mother and daughter. Walter admits that the girl seemed more like a child to him than he did, and although he felt a little jealous, he actually felt relieved. The woman listens calmly and notices that there's not a hint of irony in his words. The woman prepares food, expressing the hope that Margaret will stay at least until she gets married. She then explains that Daniel and Buddy are on duty, though Margaret is unaware of this, and the man asks about the next steps. The older woman smiles softly, and Carl mentally imagines the man with the pumpkin and cannot believe that he is postponing his daughter's wedding, calling him a terrible father. The young man asks the other if he is curious, and the other quietly admits that he finds her a very attractive woman. She reflects on how the girl isn't afraid of her and always feels safe around her, and the man ponders the meaning of family. She agrees that they truly resemble a family, where everyone feels comfortable together. Sei smiles softly, and Richard, slightly embarrassed, admits he once failed. She replies that it all depends on who he's talking to, hinting that this might be a surprise admission. Sei and the older woman bake together in the cozy kitchen. Sei thinks she looks more like a sister than a wife, and the older woman looks at him with a warm, understanding smile. The young man says that he came in after a visit and almost finished his business, getting ready to return to the mansion, then asks the woman what she thinks about it. The young man calmly explains that he only stopped by on his way home to pick her up, and the woman listens attentively and then nods, accepting his words with a light, balanced expression on her face. The fair-haired man reassures his interlocutor, saying that there is no need to worry so much, while the dark-haired man admits that he does not find her attractive, despite the admiration of others. The young man insists he has a right to be there, despite the other man's doubts. The other man admits he can't afford it and isn't happy about what's happening, but ultimately they agree they're on the same side. The fair-haired young man admits that he always wanted the older man next to him to be his real father, because this role was his cherished desire. A man gently kisses a woman's hand, and she is confused when he calls her Margaret. Surprised and embarrassed, she blushes and quietly closes the door behind her. The girl nervously tells the man that she spoke with her mother. He calmly acknowledges that difficulties lie ahead and sincerely thanks her, calling her by name. Under the starry sky, the elder tells the younger that he's good at everything except when it comes to Margaret. The younger asks with a slight smile if he's really that easy to read. The man in glasses informs the doctor that the last documents have been put in order. The doctor asks him to continue his story, if he doesn't mind. A bespectacled man explains that a provincial baronial family is trying to snatch a talented heir from the noble Disraeli family. A young man in a suit objects, saying he won't allow Margaret to be exploited and will acknowledge the family's skill as long as she remains outside their influence. A calm woman says the spirit summoner has no political clout, while a cloaked man discusses measures to ensure Margaret's affairs remain untouched. A third participant listens with rapt attention. The bespectacled man asks when the other will be leaving for King's Landing, and the younger man replies that he doesn't mind going with Walter when he returns, even though he'll be gone for 2 days. The young man smiles confidently, declaring that upon his return, he will become Mark Reynolds again and will accept no objections. The older man in glasses replies that it is her son who should take care of her. The red-haired woman greets Hugh Townsend with a touch of mockery, while the fair-haired Marchioness is complimented on her beauty and asked to tell a story, but she gently declines. The woman anxiously says that she cannot speak with Lady Rachel alone, while the other says that she has already submitted her report and emphasizes the importance of the summoner's case. Sae is praised as the perfect companion for the Lady of the Golden Rose, and Richard watches with a smile as Sae, shy and concerned, inquires about Mr. Walter's well-being. The girl with the big bow gets nervous and asks what Margaret is really like, and the woman explains that this was the first time mother and son had met in many years, and now they seem to get along great. A man with long hair calls Hugh Townsend cute, and a cheerful girl invites everyone to have tea in the lab, persistently inviting the company to join. A woman greets Hugh and notices that he looks tired, asking what he's thinking. Another woman praises the delicious food at Mislay, while a maid asks a lively girl to be quiet and not make a mess in the kitchen. Sae notices the changes and says that it's better now than before, and Elma smiles softly and agrees that it's as if an old curse has been lifted from them. The girl's parents were worried about her trip to the capital, but were happy to see her return. The residents of Mislay welcomed her warmly, admiring her magical eyes and her ability to harness the power of spirits in everyday life. Elma, relieved, says she's glad to be appearing in Mislay, and Sae happily agrees, adding that Margaret is the very summoner. Sae and Richard sit by the window among the bookshelves. He inquires about the character of a certain woman, and she answers thoughtfully, showing him an elegant box with roses inside. The dark-haired woman is described as an excellent cook who helped at Dr. Reynolds' clinic and looked after children, who adored her. Another, with long hair, says that the couple are 26 and 24 years old, adding that she is simple but feminine, while the interlocutor listens calmly, and the maid and the girl next to her react shyly to the pause in the conversation. The woman states outright that she will get down to business and asks how things are going with Walter, to which the other woman smiles shyly, noting that Margaret is not at all shy. Sae explains that Mr. Walter is helping in the garden and seems relaxed, and another woman anxiously asks if Earl Dustin is really working there, after which the man reassures Margaret not to be afraid. She notices how tall he is, and his serious gaze seems a little stern to her, and she wonders if it is really just an impression. Two women discuss how they greeted each other when they first met, recalling the graceful bow, and one of them reacts to this confession with surprise and embarrassment. Margaret is informed that in her past life she had neither a husband nor a lover, and she begins to wonder if Miss Lai has a boyfriend, remembering how she said that she broke up and is now single. Mira, holding back tears, calls out to Sae and mentions Miss Adelaide, and Sae calmly replies that she is already on her way, which surprises Mira. The determined woman declares that she will immediately contact her father and go to Miss Lai, causing the two people present to react with surprise and attention. Sae excitedly explains to Lady Rachel that even the Marquise cannot enter without permission, emphasizing the importance of the spirit summoner, and Rachel reacts in shock. The woman with long silver hair warns Hugh Townsend to be careful who he is talking to, and the girl with the braid timidly admits that she is scared. She quietly remarks that she has intruded without permission and wonders if Mr. Walter will only be here for a few days before someone comes for him. The energetic woman explains that she will not go to Miss Lai because of the summoner and intends to return by carriage to Walter, who is currently visiting his mother, and the second one turns to Rachel. She doubts such an aristocratic excuse will work with Walter, and stubbornly places her hands on the floor while the other woman apologizes for the dust that has accumulated during her absence. She ironically calls someone a crybaby and thinks to herself that the sweet person they were talking about is, without a doubt, Walter. Elma tearfully confesses that she wants to be a woman worthy of Sir Walter, not just the Lady of the Golden Rose. Sae gently consoles her, saying that Walter is, in fact, a simpleton. The woman with long hair calmly tells the tearful girl that she has good news and says that she has made several suggestions in her report, promising to explain one of them in detail. The man explains to the girl that there are almost no single women Margaret's age in the village, and that she will soon be heading to the capital. He adds that it would be helpful for her to have someone her own age nearby to help her settle in, and the girl understands with a thrill what he means. Issei confidently tells the girl that if she now submits an application and asks the Marquis to convey her request, then the chances of a meeting will be very high. A determined young woman declares that she will take the job and leave tomorrow, but the other calmly reminds her that tomorrow is not today, after which they head towards the exit together. The woman asks for a moment, and then the scene changes to an empty chair with petals falling around it and Margaret's name appearing in the air. Saa nervously reads a letter informing her that a marquise from the capital wishes to meet with her. An elderly woman and a man nearby calmly advise her to take her time and reschedule the meeting if they feel the moment is inappropriate. A basket of medlars sits on the table. Saa promises to take the wounded man to the forest when he recovers, but for now, she suggests they make do with the fruit. She then thanks Richard for picking the medlars, to which he asks with a chuckle why she hesitated, when she'd been so eager to try them. He leans closer, causing her to blush and wonder why, and then quietly asks if she has a friend, while she sheepishly notes that it's still morning. The girl angrily declares she'll call the bird herself, and the boy next to her apologizes guiltily. At that moment, two more boys approach them, and one of the boys happily greets the first one, calling him friend. She offers to finish weeding, but he approaches with the dog and says he has something he wants to tell her. Sae asks with interest what he's talking about. The girl, surprised, asks why permission is needed, and the man explains that he told his partner about it, and he gave the go-ahead. The blonde-haired young man smiles softly and says they'll have to tell their parents about them after all. The woman reacts with embarrassment, while the other man remarks that Dr. Daniel would have understood right away. Sae stands dumbfounded at the counter when the dog wonders what Buddy before Miss Adelaide means. Later, Sae and the man discuss how Buddy is actually a marquis, they just happen to be in the same place. Sae believes she still has enough time to prepare the apricots before the guests arrive. She feels the coolness of the well water and wonders with a slight smile if the intimacy between them has become too great. Sae carefully explains how to wipe the apricots, remove the stems, and cut along the line to twist the fruit and carefully separate the halves. She then advises separating the pits and berries, pouring sugar into a saucepan, noting that apricot jam requires more sugar than strawberry jam. A woman recalls how difficult it was to obtain miso, soy sauce, and butter, while another says apricots don't sell for long. Next, she describes the process of making amaretto liqueur, after which the woman decides to make a loquat dessert, adding that Walter is currently undergoing an inspection. Rachel introduces herself as the daughter of Marquis Lindgren, and the assembled company admire Margaret's liveliness, also mentioning Miss Adelaide Dustin. Rachel addresses the seated girl politely, apologizing for the sudden intrusion and explaining that Lady Margaret does not like ceremony, offering to do the same as Hugh if it does not cause inconvenience. The woman assures that if someone is accustomed to Mr. Hugh's manners, then they can withstand a little pressure, and the man in the chair adds that Lady Rachel's father is Hugh's guardian and has known him since childhood. The woman asks not to be called by a certain title anymore, after which the scene cuts to a calm conversation between her and the man, and then to the two smiling women sharing a joyful moment. Elma is worried that it's time for them to leave in order to reach the capital before evening, and Carl, sitting next to her, doubts whether the journey really takes that long. Sae learns from a maid that Lady Rachel suffers from severe motion sickness, so the carriage cannot be accelerated and the journey will have to be slowed down, which Mary Louise accepts with a tired sigh. One woman offers to stay the night and leave early in the morning, while the other apologizes for her lack of hospitality, worrying that she might cause inconvenience or become ill from overwork. The young man calmly remarks that if he sends a letter to Marquis Lindgren now, it will reach him by evening. The two women converse quietly. One assumes Margaret wants to continue the conversation, while the other warmly remarks on her modesty and kindness, calling the girl good. The girl with the braid tearfully mentions Mary Louise, while the lady in the rich dress advises Lady Rachel to do the same, considering it the best decision, while the maid watches hesitantly nearby. The group settles down on an elegant sofa, one woman shyly responds to kind words, and another stands nearby, creating the feeling that the conversation will soon continue in a warm atmosphere. The Marquise's carriage is described as luxurious and comfortable, and someone nearby says with irritation that he is the only exception, quietly muttering Mary Louise's name. Elma, tired and begging for a slower pace, wonders if she was reckless in agreeing to the forced day trip to Mislai, while the maid reminds her that the last rest stop is coming soon. At the village headman's house, the man admits with a kind smile that he did not expect to meet Mr. Walter, as they only came for instructions. A calm woman and a confused girl stand next to a smiling lady, and the narration notes that they were riding in the same carriage and that Lady Margaret's personality matches Hugh's description perfectly, with a stately mansion in the background. The woman reflects that there's no point in dwelling on the past, as Margaret's presence is what matters. Her warm yet strange aura creates an unusual atmosphere, making one wonder whether it's her personality or her role as the summoner. The meeting took place in the living room, where she sincerely confessed her feelings, after which both parties exchanged apologies and assurances that the sudden presence did not create any inconvenience. The man reflects that talking to Walter was like a long-held dream come true, while the woman sadly reflects that she would like to help them both, but is afraid to impose herself. Elma is anxious about the upcoming night under the same roof and doubts she'll be able to sleep, but she decides to confirm her thoughts. Then the maid offers her another cup of tea, and Elma gratefully accepts. The woman warmly praises Margaret, calling her a pleasant person and a good friend of Walter's, and the man in the carved chair agrees, noting that she seems to know Miss Adelaide well. The woman smiles softly and the man stands nearby, and the narrative emphasizes that every word Walter said to Margaret sounded warm and sincere, as if he treated her as special. He admits that it feels like he has a sister, explaining that he has become estranged from his mother due to constant arguments, and she looks at him with surprise and slight anxiety. The man says that he came to see Margaret after a long separation and that it was she who helped him reconnect with his mother, while carefully hugging her. The girl explains that Margaret considers her mother a savior and benefactor, and the man says that he wants to fulfill her wish, but another woman smilingly offers to marry her, to which he resolutely refuses. Rachel quickly declares that she is not fit for marriage, then apologizes, and the other woman anxiously says her name. The man recalls how kind the woman was to him as a child, and she says that she does not consider Mr. Walter unsuitable for marriage, after which she recalls with a slight sadness her first visit to the castle. Walter, who was walking around the castle, noticed her, picked her up and carried her away with ease, all the while negotiating with people and providing the necessary instructions and funds. A man sternly scolds a crying girl, and she remembers that this was the first time someone reproached her, and feels the unusual warmth of his hand, so different from her father's touch. She reflects on how Walter became a part of her life as she grew older, noting his kind eyes and natural concern for those beneath him. The man remembers how a small lady was scolded by a large and strong man, but he did it with kindness, while the woman remembers that she was once on the verge of death and was grateful for the compassion shown, and he admits that he did not expect to hear such a thing from her. She apologizes for everything he has gone through, claiming that it could not have been otherwise, and he quietly answers with a short but firm no. The woman thinks about how much they have to discuss and is touched by the fact that he calls Margaret his sister, with a restrained joy and a soft, sincere smile. Mary Louise is admiring the cozy room when a maid calls her name. The older woman offers to write a letter and rest until dinner, to which the girl agrees with a smile. Elma holds the pot with a warm smile, and Issei watches with a soft expression as Elma explains that she is making jam, showing the boiling mixture on the stove. Mary Louise happily inhales the aroma of the finished jars, exchanging a kind smile with her friend. At this moment, Margaret's voice is called from the window, and Mary Louise joyfully announces that everything is ready. The girl takes a bite of the treat, drawing surprised looks from her friends, after which she happily savors the taste, and one of them admiringly remarks that Margaret is truly delicious. Two women share a heartfelt moment. One says that even though the other has no voice, her smile fills her soul with warmth and tenderness, making her want to stay close, while a maid watches with a quiet smile. Rachel politely introduces herself and expresses gratitude for the help she provided to her grandfather, and the man in glasses modestly replies that he was just a little help. A young man shows his apprentice sign to an older man with glasses, who says he's happy to collaborate, while a woman with braided hair watches the scene with a slight smile. Mary Louise smiles warmly at the young man as they talk, while nearby Rachel and Elma discuss how sweet the jam is without a hint of sourness, while a distant call for Mary Louise sounds. Sei admits that she only saw him a couple of times and calmly adds that change is change, while Elma notes that the information from Hugh was not enough. The man calmly says that it is enough for him to have at least one person show interest in him, to which she replies as if she does not understand, and another woman remarks that a true gentleman who does not glance at her daughter's appearance is a great rarity. At the table, two women talk about how their family is used to doing everything together, and the maid and the young man listen to them with surprised expressions on their faces. The girl reacts with surprise when the man cheerfully explains that only Margaret's drink is diluted with juice, after which attention turns to the glass on the table, and someone confirms that it is an aperitif. At dinner, a waiter approaches with a bottle, causing mild surprise among those present. A man with a mustache suggests starting the meal with wine, and a woman and a young man respond with kind smiles. The girl is worried that she has overeaten and is afraid of appearing gluttonous, but the woman reassures her, saying that the food was delicious and praising the cook, thinking of sending her for training. Sei smiles warmly, while the other woman notes with relief that Mr. Hugh enjoyed the food. The silver-haired lady quietly reflects on the neglected state of the Marquise's kitchen and how few magical tools remain. Sei, smiling and slightly flushed, asks if anyone is drunk, and the woman standing next to her, with a slight grin, thinks that Sei herself is probably already a little tipsy, watching what is happening. The man in glasses gently strokes the embarrassed girl's head, while the gray-haired gentleman warns Mark not to be jealous of his boss and to refrain from such hints in the future, and the girl advises him to be more careful when going down the stairs. The man warns the girl that if she stumbles, she'll get into trouble, to which she clenches her fists, determined not to give in to fear. The two women exchange amused glances, and then the man, walking away into the night sky, promises to return. The narrative notes that the injuries Miss Margaret received when she arrived at Miscellany were extremely severe, and both doctors who attended her remembered her condition very well in the first days. A woman with long dark hair explains that she's treated too kindly, because in her world she's already 28, and the woman sitting next to her adds that they count age differently here. A third woman laughs, admitting that she's the same age as Mary Louise. The man politely advises Rachel to go to bed and get ready for the morning, and the woman agrees that this is reasonable, while Rachel is puzzled as to what exactly should happen in the morning. A young woman sitting by the window confesses that she feels as if she's in another world, where she can be herself and where comfort fills her heart. The maid, noticing her thoughtfulness, cautiously asks if everything is all right. The two women stand side by side, and one of them reflects that both Lady Adelaide and Margaret are speaking to her sincerely, as if she were an equal, laughing warmly and kindly. The woman begins to wonder if a relationship built on titles alone isn't enough. Then the two women join hands, and one admits she wants to be accepted with all her flaws, while the other mentions she's going to discuss it with Roy. The horses behave calmly, despite the fact that they are here for the first time, and the girl reflects on the kindness of those around her and suggests that this may be the influence of the spirit summoner. The maid remarks that the shy young lady was able to calmly converse with Count Dustin, the man of her dreams. The girl hesitantly replies that she doesn't know, as no book has ever written about it. A tearful girl complains that she was laughed at, and the woman, with a gentle smile, replies that everything went well, trying to diffuse the situation with light words. Elma gently tells Mary Louise that she is tired and needs to rest, and the girl smiles warmly, thinking that even though the summoner does not possess magic, her heart is filled with kindness. The scene captures the magical atmosphere of Miscellany. A close-up of the character's closed eyes is accompanied by thoughts about the morning birdsong being louder than expected. The morning is filled with the chirping of birds. Sei greets everyone with a kind smile. Margaret hopes that Rachel is not too surprised and wishes Roy good morning, to which he responds cheerfully. Richard kindly offers Sei to pet the horse, assuring her that she can, and she hesitantly extends her hand, then delightedly admires the velvety softness of the coat, calling the animal beautiful. She reacts warmly when he smiles at her, then playfully asks the dog if she's sulking, to which the dog lowers his head in embarrassment at being called Buddy. Richard calmly pets the horse, explaining that he brought the calm animals to help a girl who gets motion sickness. Someone nearby remarks that the horses here are especially relaxed. She reflects that the closer you are to the forest, the calmer your soul becomes, agreeing with this and adding that the feeling of peace comes precisely from the proximity of the spiritual forest. Sae announces that breakfast is almost ready and asks to return when it's finished. The girl happily says that she likes it here too, and later the woman greets Margaret and asks if she's kept everyone waiting. Sae asks if the other has been outside, then suggests picking some blueberries, to which she replies that preparing breakfast will take a little longer. A cheerful girl remarks with a smile that he looks cute in the morning, after which the woman invites Walter to join them, and he, with slight bewilderment, clarifies if they are talking about him, as the others pass by. A man tells a confused woman that if she spent more time with another girl, she would understand her feelings, and a third, watching, smiles quietly, as if she guesses the real reason. She thinks Walter is too slow to understand what is happening, while he, with a soft smile and closed eyes, maintains a calm patience. One girl happily compares the situation to a woman setting up a blind date, while the other remarks that working together makes their communication less awkward, even without words. Sae enthusiastically agrees to participate in the berry picking, feeling like a true gatherer, filling the basket with both hands and encouraging the others to continue. Margaret happily holds a large basket, while the others praise her speed and express pride. Soon, word arrives that Miss Rachel and the others will be leaving before noon, and Margaret decides to pack some things for the journey. Margaret cheerfully decides to bake cakes from the blueberries she picked that morning, and another girl excitedly says that she has prepared a gift for Miss Rachel and her companions. Elma kindly offers to help and is surprised that Sae wants to do everything herself. Sae considers whether to accept the help, and Elma adds that cooking together is a way to create fond memories. The footage shows baking ingredients: a bowl of blueberries, eggs, and a whisk. The character explains that the recipe is simple, requiring only fresh berries, and then plans to bake mini muffins. Sae teaches a girl to crack an egg and add it to a bowl of milk and sugar, showing her how to properly crack the shell with both hands, but the student tries awkwardly and fails to crack the egg. Elma, holding back tears, admits that everything is a little dirty, but promises not to cry. Another woman praises her for her efforts and suggests washing her hands and trying again. Sae carefully whisks the eggs, explaining that they need to be stirred lightly to separate the whites and yolks, then pours the mixture into a bowl with sugar, continuing with the recipe. Sae and the girl slowly pour the melted butter into the dough, reminding them to add the flour carefully and not overmix it to maintain a soft texture and rich flavor. Sae and Elma prepare the cake pan by leveling the batter and pressing out the air, then grease the pan with butter and sprinkle crushed cookies on it instead of baking paper. Blueberries are sprinkled on the dough, then covered with another layer and sprinkled with a little sugar. Two girls watch as the baking sheets are carefully placed into the warm oven. Sae reassures Mira that the dish turned out great, and Mira admits she's glad it's all finished. Sae explains the baking process and adds that she'll entrust the oven to Miss Rachel. Sae proudly shows off the finished blueberry muffin, while another girl happily calls Mary Louise over to see the real thing. Sae tries a slice and smiles contentedly. Mary Louise looks confused, unsure what to do, but the maid gently suggests they finish their meal first and then discuss the matter calmly. A woman nearby smiles approvingly, maintaining the warm atmosphere. A young woman recalls being a child when her mother lived in the royal capital. Another woman remarks that her daughter is surprisingly cute, and the older woman agrees with a warm smile, after which the scene fades to a calm sky. Margaret gazes thoughtfully into the distance, while those around her express the hope of seeing her again. The man announces that he is returning to the capital tomorrow and suggests discussing the report again before leaving. The man gently tells the woman he didn't know it would be tomorrow. She confirms and reassures him, saying she'll be back soon and this time he won't have to wait long. Sae suggests continuing the conversation on the balcony, and the man agrees, noting that the breeze is pleasantly cool as they prepare to go out. Sae and Elma are in the kitchen. Elma is pouring tea, and Sae is listening intently. Elma explains that all this time, the preparations have been going on for one person. Sae quietly expresses gratitude to Margaret, who gently admits she's already come to terms with what's happening. A quiet moment of understanding ensues between them. Sae worries, thinking that her efforts are useless and that she has done nothing, but the other woman reassures her, saying that what matters is not the actions, but the fact that she changed someone's life. The girl ponders how things would have turned out if she had not been here, then speaks lovingly of Miss Adelaide, holding the older woman's hand and feeling the comfort of this life. Sae approaches Richard with a tray, asks what happened, and hands him the report, offering to take a look. He sits down at the desk and carefully reviews the papers. She studies the documents and calmly says that there is nothing to worry about, but he asks if she wants to rely only on herself or do something else, and she admits that this is the difficulty. The woman recalls being told she was valuable simply by her presence, but she resents the gratitude. The man remarks that if the royal court truly cared, they would prefer her to live off her income rather than work, warning that other countries might exploit her if her own family didn't provide support. From their conversation, it appears that such an argument could be used as a pretext to take her back, accusing others of disrespecting a man worthy of veneration across the continent. They sit across from each other at the table, and the man explains that not everyone in the capital is benevolent, advising against thinking that she alone receives the spirit's blessings. Sae ponders silently, understanding the need for caution. The man tells Margaret that although there is plenty to do in the house, she is unlikely to waste time on trifles, because she will get bored without something to do, and therefore wants to work so as not to lose touch with the world. The man calmly notes that the woman does not know how to hide her emotions, and when she blushes embarrassedly, he adds that her feelings can be read on her face even in silence. Sae recalls that this used to only happen in front of her mother, but recently it has become more and more frequent, and the man listens to her with an attentive and thoughtful look. The man gently tells the woman that he expected a little more patience from her and asks her not to change anything until the wound heals, and she smiles and thinks how nice it is to understand him better and better. Carl assures the woman that his job is to help her come to terms with her feelings and her country, and she is deeply touched, saying that since she came here, she has been stroked on the head more times than in her entire life. She reflects that although she is perceived as a child, she does not feel irritated, because she feels care and kindness in his touch, but does not know how to respond to this kindness. The girl smiles softly and looks at a young man named Walter, who is described as unsociable, stubborn and naive, but reliable, like an older brother. On the day Master Walter departs for the royal capital with Mark, Sae asks him what souvenir he would like. He hesitates, answering uncertainly, as if unsure of what to say. She asks him not to bring a thing, but to tell a funny story as a gift, and he looks at her seriously, as if taking the request to heart. Luke hesitates for a moment, then smiles and touzles the girl's hair, causing her to look surprised and laugh. She agrees, and he encourages her, saying everything will work out. Richard sternly warns Margaret not to go out alone or for unnecessarily long walks, reminding her to return before dark. He then gently embraces her and promises to return soon. Sae receives a light kiss on the forehead from the young man and freezes in surprise, while two men stealthily peer through the door. Realizing what's happening, she shyly looks away, feeling her cheeks burn. The man reassures the girl, saying that both Mark and Walter are now building their future. He gently strokes her head, and she, blushing slightly, smiles shyly, feeling the warmth of his care. The woman cheerfully tells the man to just open the door and enjoy his lunch, and he cheerfully replies that he's looking forward to his break when Margaret arrives. Later, they stand outside the building in the evening light. 3 children excitedly show off their patterned cookies, boasting that they can play with them like Pong. The maid watches in amazement, and the woman suggests trying to break hers into 3 pieces. Sae receives a peach from her hands, and they explain to her that it's a gift from Grandpa Tom as thanks for the conversation. A cheerful Mira offers to play and promises to be obedient, and the maid, smiling, calls Sae big sister. Sae carefully holds 2 apples in her palms, quietly contemplating her future and what she still doesn't know. However, she feels certain of one thing: no matter who she becomes, her essence will remain the same. The village is shown tranquilly under a clear sky. The girl walks off into the distance with a gentle smile, and a quiet voice utters gratitude to the one who has been watching her all this time.